All right, let me first welcome everybody to Hamcation 2021 special edition. Real quick, we'll do a word from our sponsors. All right. Let me introduce Carol Perry. She will be doing the youth webinar. Carol, it is all yours.
Well, thank you, Michael, and good morning to everybody. And big virtual hugs and thank yous, especially to the Orlando Amateur Radio Club for providing this terrific opportunity. Hams, as always, will find a way to get together, and I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to Michael and John and James and all the little elves who are making this webinar and this virtual convention possible. It's appreciated. Well, for good ideas about recruitment and retention of amateur radio youth, I am going to suggest, first of all, to refer you to the website of the organization that I do all my volunteer efforts for, and that would be RCA, which is the Radio Club of America, which was founded in 1909. So we've been around for a while. In fact, it's the oldest wireless club in the world. They are the ones who are responsible for my youth activities. So I refer you to that website after this webinar is over for more good ideas about youth initiatives and all the free resources that would be available to you. And that would be at www.radioclubofamerica.org. And click on the youth activities. And while you're on the website, see all the fabulous other initiatives that RCA has to offer. And it's all a volunteer organization. Or you can contact me directly, or you can contact me directly after this is over. I'll take you through some what I think are really good ideas about our initiatives and what you can do. But there's ways I can help you with everything that we'll speak about. And there's no point in reinventing the wheel. Contact me. I've been on combat duty a long time with youth and education and amateur radio. You can contact me at WB2, Whiskey Bravo 2, at gmail.com. WB2MGP at gmail.com. That's WB2 Mighty Good Professor at gmail.com. So any youth group is an acceptable place and a good place to introduce amateur radio. And that could be a summer camp. It could be scouting, Boy Scouts, and let's not forget Girl Scouts, which now offer a merit badge as well for ham radio. Could be a church group. It could be PAL, which is the Police Athletic League, and it could be a 4-H club. Any place you can go in, either by yourself or with your club, and do a ham radio demo and just demonstrate the fun, age appropriate to the group that you're speaking to. that would be interested in getting the youngsters to know more about what ham radio has to offer for them. Now, my best suggestion through a couple of years of experience is always that the best place to do your demo is in a school setting. You've got your captive audience. The youngsters are sitting there with their friends, with their peers, and that's what you want to do. You want to get them involved in a group setting so that they'll have their friends with them as well. Now, there's a few ways that you can introduce this into a school. It can be an elective class. It can be an after-school program. Or if you're lucky, you can do it the way that I did it. For 30 years, I taught Introduction to Amateur Radio to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders in a middle school in Staten Island, New York. I had 12 classes every term with up to 40 students in each class. So it was taught as an enrichment program. And that's why in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, you were coming through Introduction to Amateur Radio. It was a standalone program, and it's a great selling point for an administrator or the school principal who has to approve you're getting in there to do it that way. You're not going to convince him that, oh, it will add to the ranks of our radio operators. He wants to hear what's going to be producing happy, well-motivated young students. And having ham radio in your classroom is a sure way to do it. For example, I tied the amateur radio program into all areas of the school curricula. For example, social studies, current events. Current events, we could speak live to people experiencing a hurricane or a tornado, speaking to citizens in different states, in different regions of the country, or to different countries, depending on where the radio contact had been made. In other words, it was flexible based on the contact we had made, what area of the school's curricula for that particular class that I would then do a lesson of. So social studies, current events, geography on a need to know basis. Where is that state? Where is that country where we just spoke to that great radio operator? Math and science, well, those skills are obvious how you can tie that into amateur radio. Language arts skills, this one is not so obvious, but it's a great selling point to a school administrator, to a principal. You are teaching children how to speak clearly and succinctly on the radio, and then following up with good writing skills with follow-up QSL cards, or when they become radio pen pals, as many of my students in the past have become. Importantly, if you want to put a smile on an administrator's face, you can point out that you are one of the few teachers who is teaching listening and concentration skills. Whenever you would be introducing Morse code, you are teaching how to listen and how to concentrate. And that's something you will have parents come back and thank you for, because really nobody teaches that anymore. And that's an extremely valuable skill to bring into a classroom setting for young people. Now, how do you get into a school in the first place? Well, the easiest way is if there's already a ham operator in the school. At that point, you and or your club can volunteer to come in and do a demo lesson periodically. For example, when we were lucky enough to be making space shuttle contacts, when the SAREX program was operational, that opens up a whole slew of lessons where you can speak about gravity, astronomy can be brought in at that time. In other words, make everything relevant to your audience. It's something that they experience live and can have fun with, and it becomes relevant to them. So therefore, it's the best way to learn something. Now, you can offer to do a demo lesson, as I said, or you can volunteer to speak at a parent-teacher association, the local PTA meeting. They're always interested in having good speakers come. And I never wanted for anything in my program because I had all the PTA parents' children in my classes. So PTA, that's a good group to sell this program idea to. Tell them what's in it for them as parents, where they can participate in something, maybe for the first time academically, with their children, with their own youngsters, all of whom will have come through my program since I did 6th, 7th, and 8th grade at the school that I taught at. Now, a real winner of an idea is if you set up a demo in the school cafeteria. I guarantee you will have a lineup of young people who want to get on that microphone and make a contact. Make sure you have somebody who's really good with kids at the other end to talk to them and let them have an opportunity to get on the radio. School cafeteria during lunchtime is a good way to do this, to get into the school, and then you'll have the kids selling the idea or bringing the program into the school for you. So there's a few ways to get in. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. Feel free to contact me anytime after this to get ideas specifically for your particular situation. So don't go in and make that first impression with the administrator till you get some feedback and maybe some good suggestions from me. More than happy to work with you on that one. Now, I would also throw in a suggestion. The schools that have the STEM programs and the gifted programs have a lineup of speakers who are willing to come in. My suggestion, and it always works, is go into an underperforming school where perhaps the children don't have role models. Why don't you become one? And you'll be exposing young people to something perhaps they would never have an opportunity of experiencing in their particular environment. So that's a good suggestion that always works. Go into an underperforming school. Now we know with COVID and with all the things that are going on with getting into a school, things are different and more difficult, but these ideas will always work. They'll always be there, and we will be getting back to normal times again. And the ideas will always be good ones. And again, please contact me if you would like to get it, if you are inspired and you want to get into a school setting, which is still my best advice of how to do this. Now, RCA enables me to offer so many fabulous opportunities for young people that I encourage you to, if you on the air or you know a young person who's of the caliber of the young Audrey who you're going to be meeting here soon, I I have so many wonderful opportunities of plugging these young people into different venues to their advantage. We share, as we're doing now, we showcase the young people through RCA, and then we support them through different scholarship programs. And I would mention that I'm also a director of QCWA. So you can contact me for more information about the scholarships that they give out as well, administered by FAR. So there are those opportunities as well that you're more than welcome to contact me about. Now, again, RCA sponsors me at all the different national conventions, the fabulous conventions we're so lucky to have, be it virtual or in person. Hamcation, obvious. You can recommend these young speakers to me. When I go to different regions of the country, I always like to at least showcase a youngster from that region so that the local clubs get to see the young people, and then the young people have the advantage of the networking opportunities of meeting with your local club members. Hamcation, one of the ones I love doing every year, February. Hamvention, that's obviously the big one. For 32 years, I've done the youth forum there where I can showcase up to 8 young people each year. And this is the opportunity. This was 32 years I've been doing the youth forum at Hamvention, as well as the instructors forum. And when we're up and running again, as we will be in 2022, be sure to recommend young people to me well in advance for the May convention. I begin interviewing in September. And I'm happy to report there's always a waiting list. So that's good news for all of us. And Huntsville, Alabama, at their Hamfest. Again, recommend young people to me so that when I do local Hamfest or I'm hopping around again, as I hope to be soon in different parts of the country, we can sponsor these youngsters. The other fabulous opportunity that gets offered is I get to choose one young person to appear at the RCA Technical Symposium every year. Now, that's a very prestigious event that we have once a year. We go to different parts of the country. Every other year, it goes back to New York, where the club originated from. And many notables of the wireless industry attend this symposium. And I get one of our fabulous RCA Young Achievers to give a presentation there. And the networking opportunities are simply fantastic. So there's through RCA or through QCWA, I do invite you to get in touch with me. And if you have a young person that you think I can help showcase and support, I would be more than happy to do that. Now, I also would like to make sure I give you the announcement that every year I sponsor, when I say I, through QCWA and RCA, a contest, the Young Ham Lends a Hand contest. And that is to reward the spirit of volunteerism, which is one of the basic tenets of amateur radio. The youngster, there's nothing formal. It's just you sending me an email telling me why this youngster meets the qualifications that we're all hoping for to inspire in our youngsters about volunteerism. And that could be something unrelated to ham radio that they're doing, helping out with military personnel, helping out by helping the elderly in their community somehow. something to reward the spirit of volunteerism, doing local fundraising with the help of their radio and so on. By April 1st, I would need that recommendation, and the winner is announced at Hamvention at the Youth Forum every year, but it will be announced in May, the same weekend as what Hamvention would have been, and the young person gets a $100 stipend check from us, just to encourage that kind of volunteerism. So we know this is not your granddad's ham radio anymore. At this point, it's probably not even your dad's ham radio, but the young people are so creative and so innovative, thanks a lot through STEM programs throughout the country. They're interested in satellites, they're interested in robotics and drones, and as Audrey can verify, hot air balloons and all kinds of really innovative and good creative stuff. So hopefully if I inspired you, you can brainstorm or just run some good ideas by me. Now, having ham radio in the classroom enabled me years and years ago, way before the word STEM was coined, to use that kind of teaching technique via the ham radio program. For example, I never wanted to have the kids spit back answers to me of whatever questions I threw out at them. The approach was, how many questions can I inspire them to ask me? And that's a whole different way of looking at it. And when I go around and speak at STEM classes across the country, I emphasize that as an interesting teaching technique, which is primarily used. Now, speaking of STEM, we have a fabulous young speaker that I'm going to introduce, Audrey McElroy, KM4BUN, is 17 years old. She's been at many of my forums, and I just love her to pieces because she's everything we're hoping to get young ladies to want to enjoy and being creative in amateur radio. Getting girls involved in STEM, this is one of my favorite topics. And as we move forward in this high-tech world, Audrey believes, as I do, that young people, but especially females, are going to play a huge role with their contributions in science and math. Audrey is a great role model for all young hams, but especially for our young ladies. It is my privilege to now introduce to you Audrey McElroy. Audrey.
Hi, everybody. So yeah, I'm Audrey McElroy, 17 years old, and I'm actually in the STEM program in my local high school. I enjoy satellites, high altitude ballooning, and of course, bringing more women and girls into STEM. So I actually have a short presentation that I'll screen share and I'll go off of. Let's pull that up. Okay. So yes, Girls in STEM via ham radio. That's my short little introduction. I've done a lot in ham radio. I did the Curacao event. I've grown up learning ham radio from first principle, and those principles apply to school math and every scientific and medical field you'd be interested in STEM. So as we know, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEAM, which is arts as well, if you're interested in that, which as a clarinet player, I am. So STEM's a lot of fun, and especially for girls, because it allows a girl to feel empowered learning that science and technology and engineering and math, right? Because those are male-dominated fields nowadays. And so allowing a girl to become proficient in that allows them to feel that they're important and that they're really contributing to something. So where does ham radio fit into STEM? Well, ham radio is pretty much STEM. They're pretty much the same thing. They're basically the same. So math and engineering is used in measuring antennas. There's Ohm's law, you're doing that math, trigonometry for those satellites, which is a lot of fun to do. And of course, lift and buoyancy equations and high altitude ballooning. So ham radio provides hands-on learning for kids and especially girls. So they're able to see ham radio and see all the math and science that comes behind ham radio and see that really it's not that bad, and it actually can be a lot of fun, and it can be applied to a lot more than just, you know, working a contest, you know. So high altitude bullying is a lot of fun, satellites are a lot of fun, and what kid doesn't love satellites? You know, that's pretty cool, something going over at 17,000 miles an hour, you know, especially the ISS, making contacts with them. Decoding their slow scan TV is a lot of fun, and it's really something kids get interested in. And like Carol said, going to schools and doing ISS events and stuff like that will really bring kids into ham radio and STEM and lead them down a lifelong pathway. So continuation where ham radio fits in, you know, HF waves, they bounce through the atmosphere, VHF, UHF, not so much. You know, even the device you're looking at this whole presentation on right now most likely has 5 or more ham radio or radio transceivers. So yeah, if you want to know, well, especially for my generation, technology is pretty much our life. We get up, we do online classes on laptops, we call our friends on our cell phones, we go on Instagram and make posts. Technology is basically our lives. So why can't we learn more about it and learn that we're not just a technology user? You know, we actually know the science and the math behind it. We're not just, you know, falling into Facebook and Instagram. We know the science behind it, and we know why it works and how it works, which is great because, you know, especially for women, knowing that they can go into a field where they're going to be in a good position of a job, and they're going to know what they're doing, and other people are going to know what they're doing, and it's going to be very empowering. So where can STEM take a girl? Pursuing STEM, like I said, brings confidence and earning skills that will lead a girl to be independent. And by the time she graduates high school, she'll have a great resume. So if I can be a little example, the things I've done with ham radio, not only the great things I've done with Carol, but volunteering events especially that I've done have led me to really be a standout applicant in scholarships and colleges when I started flying in the next few months. So ham radio was really a standout thing, and especially nowadays, universities love a girl who is into STEM and is into ham radio. And funny enough, most universities, major universities, have a ham radio club. Georgia Tech, UGA, Case Western is a really big one. Harvard, all those have ham radio clubs. So if you're a girl and you're interested in STEM and ham radio going into college, you will find a niche and a group of people to be with that you know that are like you and they're like-minded, and you know you're going to fit really well with them. And like I said, ham radio shows universities that you're not just a technology consumer, like you just don't post on Instagram and stuff, but you actually know the science behind what you're doing. So career possibilities. So pretty much the world is your oyster if you're a girl in STEM, or pretty much anybody in STEM. So you could have any interest in STEM at all, and pretty much ham radio just perfectly fits into that. So science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you know, you love antennas, there's electrical engineering, RF engineering. There's no limit to what you can do with STEM and careers, because it's going to be pretty much limitless. I mean, you can be anything you want. I mean, even if you're in medicine and stuff, you can still apply certain things from ham radio. Let's say if you're like a biomedical engineer, you know, you can still apply those same concepts that you've learned for your extra test or your general test into that. So it's really a lifelong giving aspect. So what to do in college, especially for anyone going into a STEM field, college can be a joy, a reward, burden, or a disaster. From what I've learned from my friends, college can be kind of scary, you know, especially going into a STEM field. And it's really up to you, you know, to learn and take the time for your classes, and, you know, don't like stray away from that, because it's important to take your time, especially if you're in STEM classes. If you're taking a double E, if you're gonna be a double E major, all those math classes and all those engineering classes, you know, they're not easy classes. And, you know, I mean, I'm in calculus, and it's not, you know, it's not easy, it's not that bad, but it's going to get more difficult, I know. So it's always important to stay with the class and stay up to date with the class, because that's going to lead you to not only, it's not just about good grades, it's about also having a good understanding. So when you get out in the world, especially as a female, you could show those guys, hey, I know exactly what you're doing and I can do it 10 times better. So that's a very important thing. So continuation. So like I said, doing a major like double E, or if you're gonna be a mechanical engineer, if you're gonna be an arch engineer, if you're gonna be a doctor, a nurse, whatever, the roads on those pathways are not usually easy. The classes you're going to end up taking are not going to be easy. I mean, hey, I talked to some kids from the Georgia Tech Amateur Radio Club, which is a great group, by the way. And they're talking to me about classes and stuff, and they're like, it's not easy. Georgia Tech's not easy, but a rule of thumb is for all those tough classes, sit in the front row, ask the questions, and you'll do just fine. And take that difficult road, because in the end, it'll pay off. Yes, taking easier classes and stuff will be good in the short term aspect because it'll be a little easier, you'll have a little more time. But taking those harder classes over a long term goal will help you actually to progress your knowledge and, of course, in STEM. So, and just remember that your mind is a beautiful gift that gets better with you. So it's always good to exercise that and just do things that you might not at first want to do, but then you actually get really interested in. Okay, so a question I get asked a lot, especially from girls who email me, is, Audrey, it seems easy for you, so what should I do? And first of all, I would say to you, it's not easy for me all the time. A lot of people think it might be easy for me, and in reality, it's not, because I work. I do a lot of homework. I do a lot of work at home. I spend a lot of my time doing things that you know, a lot of people don't do. And I would say just concentrate and do your best, and just, you know, study what you want to study and get involved with the people you want to get involved in. And of course, ham radio is great for that. Like Carol said, volunteering is pretty much the biggest aspect of ham radio. Getting involved with your community, getting involved with local clubs. Like, for example, I'm involved with the Atlanta Track Club, which is one of the biggest track clubs in the United States. And I'm like a first responder. So I run with the people, and I have my radio, and I am there in case something happens. So it's always good to get involved with your community, because not only will that look really good on any college applications, it'll also give you some sense of self-worth, knowing that you're doing your part to really help your community. And it's always good, yes, do your homework, like my presentation says. Yeah, homework's fun. Show yourself that you'll struggle, and show others that you're worthy and you're not to be dismissed. So especially as a female in STEM, there's a lot of people who, you know, will be like, oh, female, she's an engineer or whatever. She probably doesn't know what she's talking about, really. And that's not fair, because I know, especially a lot of women, myself, that are top-notch engineers and are program managers and are at the top of the heap. And so it's always good if you show others that you're not just a pushover, and that you really know what you're doing, and you can really show those guys up and be like, I really know what I'm doing, and it'll help your confidence. So like I said, it's not easy for me. I don't have any special talent or gift or anything, but I put a lot of work in, and I do a lot of that. And the harder the work, the more time you put into work, and the easier it'll look to others. So all the stuff I do looks easy. It's really not. It's a lot of time and effort. Yeah. So my overall goal is living well in my adult life. So every time I sit down to study or get on the radio, I feel like I'm climbing a ladder to my goal. So I think that to any girls out there, I would say get a ham radio and climb alongside me. Figure out, what do you want to do in life? What's a goal do you have? You know, find something that you're really passionate in, because pretty much, like Carol said, even if it's not exactly STEM, English, ELA, social studies, that all fits into ham radio. Ham radio is a great way to bring people together, and it's full of valuable skills. And I would just say to anybody out there that if you have a goal, anything in life, just go ahead and pursue it, because you're going to be happy, and you're going to be confident, and it's going to be great. So, and especially any girls out there, I would say follow your dreams, and don't let people tell you otherwise. You know, just because you're a girl, you know, do what you want to do in life. And yes, so, and Carol Perry is a great example of this. She's the face of youth for the world in ham radio, and I'm so honored and happy to be able to be a part of this with her. And like she said, if you're a youth out there that wants to get involved and do stuff like I'm doing, just shoot her an email. She is the warmest person, and she is so sweet, and she's a great role model for the entire youth and ham radio group. And I'm so happy to be here today. So yes, thank you.
Okay, Michael, I believe you were going to be opening this up to Q&A now.
Yes, sorry about that. Had to flip a switch to turn my microphone on. All right. Right now, we'll open it up to the Q&A. If anybody has any questions, you can post it in the Q&A platform, or you can post it in the chat, and we can ask the questions to Carol and Audrey.
Okay, so I think I have one from Mike Riley. That's all those people over in North Fulton Amateur Radio Club and GARS and everybody. Hi, all those people. So his question is, how have balloons helped you expand your ham radio experience? That's a great question. So balloons for me are actually a lot of fun. So when I get to be involved in balloons, I really get passionate about it, and I love doing things with APRS. And, you know, sitting out there in the hot July sun, inflating a huge latex balloon that's going to go up and pop and come back down. I felt like it's advanced me because I've learned more about ham radio than I think any time before getting into that and working with people like Bill Brown, who is kind of like the leader in how-to balloons. So I've been able to really, you know, get involved with ham radio and learn a lot more about APRS and about how all that works. And sending something up 100,000 feet, which is not an easy thing to do, especially with batteries, funny enough. So I feel like it's helped me become a better, not only ham radio operator, but an overall role model for anybody else. And I've just become more knowledgeable about it.
All right, we do have two questions, actually three questions now in the Q&A. The first one is, do you have suggestions about bridging the gap between what sparked you to get into amateur radio and what sparks the youth of today?
That's a good question, because definitely there is a generational gap. So we look at generations in the past, and you know, you guys didn't have iPhones and Instagram and all that stuff. And basically for me and my peers, that's something we grew up with and we know. And so the issue is, right, in those past generations, talking to someone across the pond in Europe was a huge deal, right? Because that wasn't a super common thing. But now we can pick up a telephone and call anybody we want pretty much at any time. So the best way I would say to bring youth in is to do really fun things like satellites, you know, because satellites are always going to be cool to kids. How-to balloons are always going to be cool to kids. And actually integrating, you know, the technology we use today with ham radio using applications like FL Digi, which is really cool because it has an app on your phone and you can basically encode any image you want and it'll produce a set of tones. It sounds like dial-up, which I'm kind of young for that whole thing, but that's what my dad told me. So it creates that noise and you can transmit it over the radio to anybody else, and then they can receive it on that app and it'll decode the image. So there's a lot of things nowadays that we'll be able to integrate both the technology we use today and the technology of the past.
All right, we got two questions for Mark Weiler, and we can probably put those together. How did you get in that ham radio, and was it intimidating at first when you got into ham radio?
Great question. So my parents, well, my dad specifically started out with his ham radio license. His whole reason behind it was he saw 9/11 happen and he thought we have to get our ham radio license. So my mom, my dad did that probably back in early 2000s because they saw what happened with 9/11. They saw that the repeaters went down. And so there was no communication for the police. The repeaters all didn't go down, but there was no communication for EMS services. So of course, ham radio operators had to jump in and they helped them. So my dad has always helped me build up that interest in ham radio. So I've been doing projects with him and putting up, you know, dipoles in the backyard since I was like 5. So I'm pretty familiar with ham radio, and I've gotten to take what my dad's given me and do more things with it and teach more people about it. And at first, ham radio was a little intimidating for me, especially getting on the radio, talking to people, because, you know, these are it's kind of weird talking to a person, especially if you're a young kid, you know, like that. So at first it was intimidating, but then I got used to it pretty quick. And now I enjoy pretty much all aspects of ham radio.
Michael?
Yes, Carol.
Because I'm looking at some of the questions, and as you said, a lot of them have a common theme to it, especially when you're trying to attract young people. That's why I love the idea in a group setting to get them and their friends to all get into it together. And always, always, no matter who it is, no matter what age, somebody's listening to you try to sell them an idea, in this case, ham radio. The person has to be thinking, what's in this for me? Otherwise, you're going to get tuned out. So I never lectured about what it was that was so great about amateur radio. I showed them the fun part of it. Not that, oh, wow, we're going to be learning about Ohm's law, yippee. No, it's how you can have fun communicating with each other and doing great things that are enhanced by the ability to have this super kind of communications. And I would also put out the idea that there are many youth nets, and that's what you want to plug your granddaughters or your daughters or your sons, etc., into the youth nets, where they can speak with other people their age and find out what the current interest and theme is amongst people their own age. I would put that in as a suggestion.
Okay, we did have couple more questions here. One of them is actually probably for you, Carol. What strategies or advice can you give when approaching school administrations about starting a ham radio club at a school that currently has nothing like it?
Well, again, I discussed a lot of that at the beginning. The administrator is interested in how it can help the bottom line of a school, which, unlike a business, is not about making a profit. It's about having happy, well-motivated students in a learning environment. And clearly, I never, ever in 30 years of doing it, taught it as a licensing class. An administrator could not care less about that aspect. If at the end of exposing the youngsters that term to all the fun of amateur radio, if you as a student convinced me that you would make a good ham radio operator, what I would then do is pass them along to the local clubs. And then I would tell the clubs in particular how to handle it when you have young people attending one of your club meetings. But it was an idea of that the kids would be involved in an enrichment program. That's what the principal wants to be hearing, that it's something that will enhance the learning experience on a need-to-know basis. Again, in the particular school I was in was a middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So I tied it in to all the different aspects of the school's curriculum. That's what a principal would be interested in hearing about, how it will enhance the learning experience. You may not be lucky enough to get 12 classes a term the way I did, but as a standalone program, not a licensing class. It has to be applicable for every member of the student demographic. And I had everybody in each class. It was not just for gifted students. In every class I had whatever so-called average means, gifted, and in New York City, I had up to 5 special needs children in most of my classes. And everybody loved it because there was something for everybody. The way it was taught as a fun part of the school curricula.
Okay, next question is actually probably back to Audrey. Harry Jones is asking, what would you do to help other youth get over mic fright?
That's a really good question as well. And I've seen that with a lot of young kids who kind of just get sat down in front of a radio at field day. You know, they're hanging out with their parents are operating the radio, and someone says, oh, you try. So they sit them down in front of the big intimidating radio and they're like, talk to this guy. And it is a little scary for kids because they're like, I don't know this guy. This is kind of weird. So I would say that's the thing not to do, is don't just sit them down in front of radio with everyone pressuring them to talk to somebody. I would actually introduce them to ham radio first and then get them interested in getting contesting. So tell them about what ham radio is and what ham radio can do. Make them excited about it. Make them interested in it. Because if they're interested beforehand, they're going to get on the radio and be like, wow, this is so cool. Instead of just getting scared when you get sat down in front of a big radio. So definitely just letting them know what ham radio is and how it's not really scary and it's actually a lot of fun, and what people do with it. Talk about the ISS, satellites, HABs, stuff that kids love. And then they'll work their way up to talking to people on the radio. And then from that point on, they'll be great contesters and it'll be great.
Okay, we're getting a lot of questions pouring in here. So Mark Waller says, my $2 Viva and Meredith KO4 JIJ and KO4 JIK. Wow, those are tongue twisters. Just got their general license. Congrats to them. And how did you meet use in ham radio?
That's a great question. And I love how your call signs fit together in the outfit. That's really cool. Through clubs and through actually Carol Perry. I actually had the opportunity, the first youth I really got involved with was on kind of like the Curacao trip. So I met Brian Rasco, which I'm sure everybody knows. He's really cool. And he kind of linked me into a whole network of other youth. And so from a smaller aspect, I would say get involved with your club. And if your club doesn't happen to have any other youth or anything, reach out to bigger clubs that do have youth. So like an example for me, like North Fulton Amateur Radio League and Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society. Those are big clubs in your area that have little youth programs in them and that they're willing to help. So if you don't have a club near you that's like that, find a club in your region that's like that. Get linked in with them and they will do whatever they can to help get you involved and to link you up with more youth.
Okay, we'll jump around here. We'll go to this one's for Carol. Have you published a typical syllabus of topics you use for teaching ham radio in public schools?
No, I haven't, and there's a reason for that through the years. Again, having taught it for 30 years, I never taught it the same way twice. There really is no one size fits all answer to this. Because you have to be flexible and spontaneous, as I said, when you're doing it in a classroom setting, especially. If you're talking in just general, the teaching part of it, as far as the amateur radio goes, my approach was to tie it in where it was relevant to contacts we had made. But if you're looking just for straightforward syllabus, through the years, I've used the ARRL books and the Gordon West books, of course. Gordon West is on my youth activities committee for RCA. And for many years, he and I ran the CQ All Schools net on 10 meters, which we all always go back to the same idea, get kids talking to other kids. And so many fabulous youth nets and check-ins that we used to get. That's what inspires, and that's where the retention will be when they find each other. So many great youth groups, but a straightforward syllabus, I use, again, the League or Gordon West books, and then adapt it to whatever the particular group situation is that I'm teaching it to.
Okay, we'll go to Sharon Harrison is asking Audrey, are you involved in any local clubs and how can you get kids involved in them?
So yeah, I am involved in a lot of local clubs. So some local ones, like I said earlier, North Fulton Amateur Radio League, Gwinnett Amateur Radio Society, Sawney Amateur Radio Association. Those are all ones around me in Forsyth County, Georgia. So I get involved with them. I do youth programs with them, and for some of them, I'm on the board. So I'm like a youth advisor, so I help them bring in youth. So to bring more youth into clubs, if you're looking at it as you're in a club and you want to bring more youth in, do fun activities at Hamfests or at meetings. Tell them, hey, we're going to do a blue launch, or we're going to try to make contact with the ISS, or we're going to do some fun activity. Like someone mentioned in one of the questions, doing like transmitter finding. That's always a lot of fun, especially for little kids. So do those activities instead of just bringing them to a club meeting with a presentation that a young kid may find to be a little boring. And that's just because of their age. And if you're a kid looking to get more involved, like I said earlier, if you can't find a really big club near you that doesn't have a youth thing going on, find one. There's going to be one somewhere, whether it's at a university club or whether it's just at a big club that's, in your region. find one, and they will be more than happy to help you out with anything you need.
Okay, another question here from Jason McDonald. I run a digital net for scouts and youth, but I find many cannot afford a radio. What digital tools can be used to get youth on the air if they cannot afford a radio, such as Echolink, DroidStar?
That's a good question. I'm not super familiar with DroidStar and stuff, but I would say if you have a kid who isn't able to afford a radio, I would say maybe get them involved with a club or something that would be happy to sponsor them. That's kind of the easier way. There's probably a better answer to your question, but I'm not super familiar with all that much. But I would say if they could find a club, get even a cheap Battlefield radio that's like $20. Does not have to be a fancy ICOM radio or Yaesu radio. One of those, and getting them involved. Just talking on our local repeater is pretty good. So I hope that kind of helps a little bit.
Okay, this one's from Kimball Williams. It's a two-part question for both of you. During the COVID restrictions, when we are unable to gather together with others, what can you suggest to reach out to those kids who are not able to already involved in the STEM program?
Okay, I'll take it first. If you're not already plugged into a club that would be offering this opportunity, then I would once again go back to the local clubs. The Yacht Club is the one that's got kids from literally all over the world. I know Audrey belongs to that too, and Ed is a good friend of mine who runs that net. The opportunities are there. And if you have a problem figuring out where to go or what to do, please do use me as a resource. And now you've got Audrey as a resource as well. I would point out, the networking is fabulous. I can't think of a better venue than through amateur radio for networking for almost any question that you can come up with. When Audrey recently did the QSO Today Ham Expo with me, we had people literally from all over the world with follow-up questions who have remained in touch with both of us since last August, including a science teacher from Australia who's constantly, I know he's in touch with Audrey with the hot air ballooning part of it, and with me for teaching different technique suggestions. So there's always a way to answer any of these questions you might have. And I think you've got, obviously, in both age groups represented here. Feel free to contact either one of us.
All right, we're running up on 5 minutes to the hour. There's still a couple more questions in here. If you want to give out your contact information, maybe some of these people can reach out privately to you for the unanswered questions, and then you can reach out to them with more information on some of them.
Yes, and on my QRZ page is my email. So if you just look that up, you'll find everything about me if you need to send a question or anything.
All right. Thank you so much, Carol, Audrey. Great presentation. Thank everybody for watching. And we still got lots more presentations going on today and tomorrow. So please go to the hamcation.com website. You can register for them yet, or you can watch them live on YouTube. Thank you very much.
73 and 88.